In 1726, Jonathan Swift wrote a book that he designed to vex the world. In it, he describes the journeys of a man who discovers the human race is base, vile and disgusting, and that their much vaunted rationality is nothing more than icing on a turd. This book was travels into several remote nations of the world in 4 parts by Lemuel Gulliver, first a surgeon and then captain of several ships, aka Gulliver's Travels. Meanwhile, in the 20th century, the Fleischer brothers were creators of popular shorts like Betty Boop and Popeye. In 1937, they, like the rest of the world, saw Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and decided that they could make their own animated film too. And so in 1939, they released Gulliver's Travels, the second ever feature-length animated film. So, how did they do it? How did a book designed to annoy people, written by a man who humorously suggested that the poor Irish should eat their own children, become this? Quick note. My aim in this series is not really to judge the books or to judge the films. I certainly don't judge an adaptation by how close it is to the book. I mean, that's stupid. They're different media, it's different times. The whole point of this series is to just look at the things that have to change to take an 18th century book and put it in the 20th or 21st century, to change it from a book to something on screen, and often to change the audience. In this case, from adults to children. Despite genuinely being a shocking and at times dispiriting work, Gulliver's Travels has long been presented as a children's book. It was bowdlerised by famous bowdleriser Thomas Bowdler, and the satirical stuff, like the Parliament being formed by people who can walk tightrope best, was presented as sheer nonsensical fun, and a lot of the scatological stuff was removed. Trust me, there's a lot of scatological stuff in Gulliver's Travels. Norman Inkpen writes an entire chapter about it in his book on scatological humour, Shit Jokes. And it's not just that gets cut. In fact, in many versions of Gulliver's Travels, and indeed in this film, there is one big cut.
First cut is the deepest. Baby, I know the first cut is the deepest.
His only travel in this film is to Lilliput. In the book, Gulliver goes on several travels. To the land of Lilliput where the small people are, to the land of Brobdingnag where the large people are, to the flying island of Laputa, to the Academy on Lagado, to the dead people of Glubdribnab, and also to the land of the Houyhnhnms, the rational horse, and the Yahoos, or the sort of base, disgusting humans. But this version, like many others, just sticks with Lilliput. We start with Gulliver's ship foundering in a massive storm, presumably because he's the only sailor on it. He stumbles onto the shore, and with a wonderful detail, the sea moves at a slightly faster speed than he is, and he collapses onto the floor unconscious. We cut to Gabby. He's actually our main character. Gulliver's going to be unconscious for quite a while. Gabby is the night watchman, but instead of watching the town, he seems to watch the countryside and the beach. And as he goes, he sings a little tune.
Laugh your fears away, see the light ahead, right ahead, there's a moonlit night ahead, everyone come on have fun, all's well.
He finds Gulliver, and I really like this little bit of silent comedy.
What's a rainy day?
Gabby runs back through the city, taking the lights with him. The Fleischer brothers are good at this. They do good cartooning. The quick pacing, extreme movement, cartoon logic. It's all wonderful. I mean, these are the people that gave us this. And this. Gabby Gabby runs to the palace, but is held up by the guards while we dive into the heady world of cartoon Lilliputian politics. The tall Milquetoast is the king of Lilliput, and the roly-poly man the king of Blefuscu. Their children are getting married the next day, and they are enthusiastically inspecting the cakes and flowers that have been provided by this...
Your Majesty, the wedding things are here.
monstrosity. They also signed the marriage contract. What sort of names are those? Little, Bombo, David, Glory? I mean, in the book they were called things like Redressel and Flimnap, but at least that kind of lives in the same universe together. I mean, David and Bombo and Glory and Little doesn't make any sense. And let's look at David and Glory for a moment. They look as lifelike as their cake toppers. Glory, incidentally, is the worst actor in the film. And as a little Disney rip-off, let's have some bluebirds. So, the marriage plans are going well until...
The Song of Lilliput. It will be played at the wedding tomorrow.
Of course, of course. Oh, what's that? Faithful? Oh, no, no. Forever, the Song of Blefuscu must be played at the wedding.
But, Bombo, Faithful is always played at our weddings. It's tradition, sir. And it's very pretty.
Yes, yes, I know. Pleasant little ditty, but hardly appropriate for this great occasion. But forever, there's a song for you. Ha-ha!
Faithful will be played.
Ah, twaddle. Absolute twaddle. It must be forever.
Faithful.
Forever.
Faithful.
Forever. It will be forever, or there will be no wedding.
No wedding, but the cake and the pretty flowers and... Oh, Bombo, you love Faithful.
And so...
It's war!
Interesting change from the book, this. In the book, the war between Lilliput and Blefuscu has been going on for several years, in fact 3 generations, when the emperor, not the king, the emperor of Lilliput's grandfather cut his hand whilst opening an egg from the little end of the egg. And he declared that all opening of eggs from the little end is now illegal, and you have to open it from the big end. So, a number of rebels spring up that open from the little end, and eventually these rebels move over to Blefuscu, where the Blefuscuans, well, they find any excuse to attack Lilliput, so they harbour all the little endians, the rebels. And I really like this in the book because it's pretty good satire about the religious wars, and about England and France, and about how France was harbouring the Catholics and England with the Protestants. And it makes a really good point about how, you know, things like transubstantiation to God in the big picture are probably small, tiny and petty. And that's the whole point of Lilliput in the books, is to show how petty people can be. And Gulliver, he wanders around it bigger, both physically but also mentally and spiritually than everyone else. Which is what is so good about the next book, which isn't in this film, which is Brobdingnag, where he's really, really small. And then, because he's really, really small, he's the small petty one. And the Brobdingnagians, well, they laugh at Gulliver for the kind of wars that we have. I think it works. However, you couldn't really have... Well, you could have had it in this film, but they don't. And they change it into this argument about songs because, well, it means they can have a love story between 2 very, very boring characters. That was popular. Look at Snow White and the Prince. And it also means that they can have a love song, which was pretty good Oscar bait. Back to Gabby. And he manages to convince King Little about the giant on the beach. Now we have great fun where we meet all the Lilliputians, including Snow White. Huh, okay. They go down to the beach as a flame-holding, hungry mob.
We don't like what we don't understand. In fact, it scares us, and this monster is mysterious and please.
Sacre bleu! Invader!
Once on the beach, hijinks ensue. And now we have the point of the film. I imagine this was the first thing they thought about when it came to making a Gulliver's Travels film. They have great fun working out how all these people work together to truss Gulliver up. I love how they work like a machine. All of it is just great.
Careful. Up.
They take him back through the city and Gulliver wakes up.
Now let's have it, Steve. What about this monster story of yours? Well, it's big and terrible.
And he has a line.
Well, what have we got here?
Only 40 minutes into the film. That's about halfway. In the book, he falls asleep in one sentence, he wakes up trussed in the other sentence. There's a full stop between them. This shows you how little Gulliver is really the focus of this Gulliver film. There are more hijinks with the Milquetoast King, Gabby and Gulliver, but this is disturbed by Blefuscu's attack on Lilliput. They're quickly frightened off by Gulliver and the Lilliputians praise him as their hero and march under his legs. In the book, some of those people marching were disturbed because marching under Gulliver, he had some unfortunate holes in his trousers. That's not really mentioned in this film, but the next scene shows Lilliputians creating a new suit for him, so maybe they did see something. Again, we have another scene that shows what the filmmakers really wanted to do, and if possible this one is even better than the trussing him up scene. The fun and the invention of this is so good. I'll leave you with it for a bit. Next we have a party scene with these two. Monstrosities. And King Milquetoast dances with Gulliver's fingers. I like the king in this. He's a funny animated character, but he rather lacks the inflated pomposity of the emperor in the book. When they fall asleep, Gulliver goes to mooch at the beach and hear the plaintive sound of his family.
I hear a dream all day, a dream that calls to me. Come home again, you sailor man, sailor man.
All all I can imagine with the lyrics of Sailor Man is...
I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm strong to the finish, 'cause I eat my spinach. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man.
Originally, Gulliver was going to be played by Popeye the Sailor Man, but the Fleischers decided that they wanted to make more of a difference between the cartoony Lilliputians and the realistic Gulliver, so they made him a realistic man by rotoscoping. They'd actually developed rotoscoping earlier on in their career. In this, what you do is you take a stills of film and you trace around it, and then you place it onto the cartoon, so you've got realistic movement. They've been quite creative with it. They'd managed to turn Cab Calloway into Cab Calloway Sea Lion Man.
Folks, now here's a story about Minnie the Moocher.
In Gulliver's Travels, they play it a lot more straight. And they do a good job. He's beautifully lit, but he enters the uncanny valley. He looks strange. The decision to make Gulliver realistic backfires. He's so much more restrained than the Lilliputians. They're so much more lively and cartoony than he is, and more fun to watch, that poor old Gulliver comes across as rather boring. Maybe they should have gone with Popeye. Next we have a subplot featuring 3 Blefuscu spies, my favourite one being this little guy. Their job is to kill Gulliver. They should have used the sling, you know, David and Gullivereth. But instead they decide to use Gulliver's pistol. This is important later. The Lilliputians go to war. Gulliver's not so into war, so he has a secret plan to end it and bring Glory and David together. On his way to stop the war, Gulliver saves the spies from a fire. In the book, the fire is in the palace and Gulliver puts it out by pissing on it. I can see why they changed that. Gulliver tries to stop the war by talking to them, but nobody listens, so he gathers up the fleet of Blefuscu, just as he does in the book. Unlike the book, the spies try to kill Gulliver with his own gun, but David stops it, seemingly dying, or maybe not. He lectures everyone about how bad war is. Need I tell you that this film was made in America in 1939. They make up, have a sing-song, build a gigantic ship for Gulliver, and off he goes. The end. Of course, that's not how it goes down in the book. In the book, Gulliver refuses to fight anymore for the Lilliputians, and so they secretly decide to put out his eyes and use him as some sort of huge, ginormous, dumb slave. He hears about this, he runs away to Blefuscu, gets them to build him a boat, and off he goes. It works because, again, it's about how petty and small the Lilliputians are, and, you know, by extension, how petty and small we are. I think it works, but this works as well, because there is some satirical intent in this film. It is talking about war, and it is saying how stupid and silly and bad war is. Gulliver did brilliantly at the box office, and it was nominated for 2 Academy Awards, for Best Soundtrack and for Best Song. Unfortunately, it came up the same year as Wizard of Oz, so won neither of them. Indeed, that awards, the 12th Academy Awards, has an enormous amount of brilliant films. That year, nominated for various things include Wizard of Oz, Gone with the Wind, Goodbye Mr. Chips, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Gunga Din, and The Private Lives of Elizabeth and Essex. It was a good year, and Gulliver did well in it, so why is it forgotten nowadays? This film doesn't age well. I mean, modern cartoons barely stop talking for a second, but this film has whole silent film moments, stretches for 10-15 minutes when nobody speaks at all. Snow White was very similar in this regard, but they had 7 very distinct dwarf characters, while the Lilliputians are a little bit homogenous. And also, Gulliver had this monstrosity.
Hey, fellas, maybe it was me, Thor. Look, I'm a giant.
The Fleischers didn't really help themselves. They had a huge argument making their second film, Mr. Bug Goes to Town, which was a ginormous disaster. And they only made a few Superman cartoons, the very first ones, and some really, really, really terrible shorts featuring Gabby from this film. And then that was it. Whilst Disney, They made Pinocchio, they made Fantasia, they made theme parks, and now they're a huge multinational corporation. Are you telling me that had they only made Snow White, that it would be remembered as fondly as it is now? Or whether the weight of the whole company behind it is what keeps it relevant? Snow White is bland and warbly, and the set pieces in that film do not hold up nearly as well as the ones in Gulliver. The scenes where Gulliver is being trussed up or dressed are simply just beautiful and imaginative, and although the whole film is dated, the animation is really, really good. As for the book, it's never been out of print. It is brilliant, it is interesting, it is musing, it is fast-paced, it is moving, and it has one of the best character arcs in any 18th century book. It starts off with a man who is a smug, satisfied apologist for the European way of life, and it ends up with him completely destroyed and broken, a misanthrope who wants to live with horses. In some ways, this is less an adaptation of the book, but more an adaptation of the illustrations inspired by the book. It is those illustrations that inform this film far more than any of Jonathan Swift's words. Those vicious, misanthropic, funny words. The book and the film are well worth seeing. They are both fantastic examples of their media in action, and I recommend you check them out. Next time, I'm going to be asking how you make a film out of an unfilmable novel. Till then, bye-bye.
Short people got no reason. Short people got no reason. Short people got no reason to leave.